Hello, this is another episode of today's Meditation for Peace. Today I will talk about unity and the importance of unity in a community. Many of you will probably be going to meditation centers, will probably be meditating at home, will be learning courses about meditation, and you might even try to learn about the Dhamma, learn about Buddhist teachings or Buddhist practice, including things like giving, including things like maintaining precepts or moral habits or something like that. But it is an observation that I've often made that in the West, we often practice spirituality each by himself. There is a certain individuality that we emphasize. These days, when you come to like a country, like my own country, where I come from, Holland, if you ask a lot of people, do you believe in God? They will say yes. But if you ask them, do you go to the church? Maybe only 5% of the whole country goes to the church. This indicates that in the present day and age, even though a lot of people might be interested in spirituality, they do not practice as a community, but they might practice at home. This is even happening in a country like Thailand, where you find people saying that, why would you go to the temple? Why would you go to a wat? If you can practice at home, if you can practice meditation at home. So the monks are left at the temple without food. But this is something that sometimes may happen if people practice spirituality by themselves. There is, of course, the benefit of that is that people take responsibility by themselves, practice spirituality at home, meditation, or other practices. There is a disadvantage as well, because there is a lot that we can gain from a community. Living together, we can gain a lot. Today I will talk about the benefits of living and practicing spirituality in a community, and also how to develop the skills for that. What skills are needed to live in a community together, practicing spirituality. It doesn't mean that you have to ordain or that you have to become a nun. It may also mean a spiritual community, like a place, at the temple, at the wat, at the meditation center where you go to, where you meet each other and you get to know each other. You be each other's good friends, good inspiration. There's a story in the time of the Buddha, when the Buddha had a problem with a few monks. I mean, he didn't have any problems, but the monks had problems. They were fighting amongst themselves in a province called Kosampi. It is known as the Quarrel of Kosampi, which is an incident that happened in the time of the Buddha, which almost caused a schism in the community, almost caused a separation within the community. At that time, the Buddha was trying to find an example of unity, and very incidentally, or perhaps it was his intention, he came across, at that time he was traveling, he met Venerable Anuruddha, who was one of the well-known disciples of the Buddha, well known for his insights, well known for his vision that comes from meditation. At that time, he went to see Venerable Anuruddha and asked him, how are you doing? If the Buddha asked his disciples, how are you doing, he would always ask them about a few things that are important. First of all, he would ask them, do you have enough food? How are you economically doing? Can you still make a living? You still find food when you go for alms round, because monks have to rely on the food that is given. And at the same time, you would also ask another thing, that is, are you living in unity, living in concord, living in harmony? And in this case, Venerable Anuruddha's response was quite interesting. He said he lives in unity, and he also explained it. He said, Venerable Sir, as to that I think thus. It is a gain for me, it is a great gain for me that I am living with such companions in the holy life. And then he explains how. I maintain bodily acts of loving kindness towards these venerable ones, that means his companions, his fellow monks. Both openly and privately, I maintain verbal acts of loving kindness, the words that he said. Towards them, both openly and privately, I maintain mental acts of loving kindness towards them, both openly and privately. I consider, why should I not set aside what I wish to do and do what these venerable ones wish to do? Then I set aside what I wish to do and do what these venerable ones wish to do. We are different in body, Venerable Sir, but one in mind. So this was his response. And then the other two monks, they were living together with the three of them in a park. The Venerable Nantiya and the Venerable Kimpila each spoke likewise, adding, that is how, Venerable Sir, we are living in concord, with mutual appreciation, without disputing, blending like milk and water, viewing each other with kindly eyes. Looking at each other with kindly eyes. Not like, oh, I don't want to meet you today. I've seen you all day long. Get out of here. And then the Buddha said, good, Anuruddha, I hope that you all abide diligent, ardent, and resolute. That means focus on your meditation. Not just, oh, it's so cozy, we talk all day long. That's the other extreme. So in this case, he's actually also checking whether there is still a focus on spiritual practice as well. And then he answered Venerable Anuruddha, surely, Venerable Sir, we abide diligent, ardent, and resolute. But Anuruddha, how do you abide thus? And now he explains both the practice, how they live together in harmony, and how that leads to spiritual practice, and how that benefits spiritual practice. Venerable Sir, as to that, whichever of us returns first from the village with alms food prepares with alms food, whoever returns first with alms food, prepares the seeds, sets out the water for drinking and for washing, and puts the refuse bucket in its place. Whichever of us returns last eats any food left over if he wishes. Otherwise he throws it away where there is no greenery or drops it into the water where there is no life. He puts away the seeds and the water for drinking and for washing. He puts away the refuse bucket after washing. And he sweeps out the refectory. Whoever notices that the pots of water for drinking, washing, or the latrine are low or empty takes care of them. If they are too heavy for him, he calls someone else by a signal of the hand, and they move it by joining hands. But because of this, we do not break out into speech. They live together in what we call noble silence. They do not speak that much. But there is a but here. It's not like they do not speak at all. But every 5 days we sit together all night discussing the Dhamma. This is how we abide diligent, ardent, and resolute. In other words, this is the way to live the spiritual life in harmony. So the Buddha had an example to show to the community at a time when there was a lot of difficulty with conflicts, at least in one area. And this was this is an interesting story. It's very detailed, and it shows how people lived together in the time of the Buddha. And it also shows that there is a way to live together in harmony in spiritual practice. Sometimes we come to a meditation center together, and we meditate together, and each goes his own way, but we never talked. This is one extreme. I did once join some meditation retreats before I ordained, which were quite like that. You came to the retreat, didn't spoke to anyone. After the retreat, you went away, and you never met any of them. Some people didn't even know their name. Well, many of them, you wouldn't even know their name. Maybe some people would have gone to such a retreat or such a regular meditation session for a month, and they would still not know the other people. And the other extreme is, of course, that to focus only on the social aspect. In some temples, this is common. A temple suddenly becomes a sort of place for celebration, to hold parties or something like that, rather than spiritual practice. So you need to find the middle way in this, to find the balance. Why is a community important for practice? The Buddha, he said that when we live in harmony in a community, this creates a good atmosphere. As they use the word, you live together in harmony like milk and water, blend in. You look at each other with kindly eyes. This is a cause to receive great merits. It's easy to do good deeds together. And he uses the word, in this way you will abide as Brahmas, or you abide like Brahmas, or you live together like the gods live, with loving kindness, and most importantly, with sympathetic joy. If anyone else is meditating well, then you are happy in the other person's attainment. You're happy with another person's attainment. And he said that if people live together in harmony, it causes us to be glad. And this is the first step for meditation, for the practice of the mind. When the mind is glad, it makes the mind ready for concentration. Actually, there are many steps to that. He said, when the mind is glad, it is ready for rapture or state of mind when the mind is satisfied with the experience, which we call piti. When the mind is a kind of particular state of mind in meditation, rather hard to translate. Rapture is the translation here. Rapture leads to tranquility of calm. And that leads to happiness, and happiness leads to concentration. This is very, very simply how the Buddha explains step by step how harmony, living together in concord, leads us to meditation experience. So it's very important for spiritual practice. The other aspect is, of course, that when we live in a community, we can be each other's kalyana mitta, or a good spiritual friend. Suppose that you come together at a meditation center, you live together at a meditation center, but you are fighting amongst each other, or you can live together, but you're kind of like colleagues without much personal relationship. That may be possible. You might be working together, and there might not be any problems. But in the long term, this might not be perfect. It may be possible that you will not be able to advise each other much, because there is no close relationship. But if we have harmony in the community, and when people, to use the words of the Buddha, view each other with kindly eyes, then it's possible to connect with each other. And also when someone else needs advice, you can advise them in spiritual practice. And on the other hand, we will find it easier to accept another person's advice because of the harmony that we have created together. Now this is all sounding very well, but how can you develop this? How can you develop this? It is said as a basic rule that to have harmony in a community, you need to have unity in two matters. Unity in what we call morality or discipline, and unity in views. Suppose that you live together as a couple, and one person, the mother says to the child, go and get some ice cream. And the father says, no, don't eat ice cream, that's very bad for your health. And you've got a different, the child will be confused. Or the father says, oh yeah, you can watch television all day long, don't worry about it, just select the right programs. But the mother says, no, you shouldn't watch too much television, something like that. Then there is a different, the parents will teach their child a different way, and the child will be confused. So even in a small community like a family, it is important to have views that are similar for harmony. At the same time, if one's views are similar but one's morality is not, that may also be a problem. But usually they tend to go together. Unity in views and unity in morality. Unity in morality, an example of not having unity in morality, for example, is one person, might have, if you talk about a couple living in a family life, one person has a boyfriend, another boyfriend, and the other person says, no, why do you do that? So this is unity in morality and unity in views. Even living together spiritually, this is important. Suppose you have one person who says, I come to the temple and I'm just happy, praying to the Buddha image and cleaning the Buddha image, that's my style. And whenever I clean the Buddha image, I sing this song, and he sings this song very loud. Another person is sitting and says, I come to the meditation center to meditate. I want everyone to be silent around me. I once had one meditation retreat, the middle way. One person was like this. He wants everyone to be silent. He has come to the middle way, to the meditation retreat of our temple, for silence. But some people wanted to talk to him. Where are you from? What are you doing here? So he felt that was kind of bothering him. So he decided to make a sign. He got some paper and wrote on the sign that, I don't want to talk. And he put the sign on his neck. He hung it on his neck, and wherever he walked, he had this sign on him saying, I don't want to talk. I still have a picture of this person. Now he has ordained in our temple, by the way, but I won't tell his name. And this is, wherever he went, he had this sign on, so people would know and understood him. So there was a clear honesty in communication. But still, there was a difference in the unity of views and the unity, perhaps, of other things. Some people felt that living together in meditation or coming together in a meditation retreat, you can talk a bit. Another person said, no, you cannot talk. So there is already a problem here. How can you develop unity in these things? Morality, views. We have to go back 2,500 years ago, when the Buddha was almost to pass away. In the last part of his life, at that time, Prince Ajatasattu, this is, in Thai he is called Prince Ajatasattu. In Bali language they call him Ajatasattu. This prince, he wanted to find a way to conquer the province or the confederacy of Vachi. Vachi was a confederacy in the time of the Buddha, who was in the area of the Ganges Valley. And at that time, this Vachi province was, at the time it used to be a custom in the north of India, in present-day Nepal, to have sort of democratic-like kind of confederacies. There was not one big king, but there were a lot of small kings living together. And this, some historians have even said that the word that is used for the monastic community, the kana sangha, actually came from this, because they used to have these people living together came together, had discussions, had a political system with different kings, different smaller kings, having a sort of kind of democratic system. Some historians have said that the word kana sangha comes from this, but I don't know, I cannot confirm that. But one certainty is that the Buddha taught the Vachis, the people living in Vachi, the Vachians, how to develop the society into a harmonious society. Even in their circumstances, which is they didn't have one big king, but they had a sort of democratic system. And he taught them how to develop the society in harmony. And these principles they practiced till at the end of the Buddha's life. It turned out that it was one of the only places that Prince Ajatasattu, who was a person who liked to conquer territory, it was a place that he couldn't conquer. It was because the people living in Vachi, the Vachians, which was a confederacy of two states, they were very clever in maintaining relations. They had relations with other states, and they had a strong harmony and unity. So it was very difficult to conquer them. That maybe it is possible to go a little bit forward into history, and you can see maybe in the present day even some examples of that. Small countries, small communities, but very difficult to conquer them or to control them because of these political relations. At the same time, the Vachians had a strong unity. They did everything together in unity. So it was very difficult to conquer them. So then, not knowing what to do, quite in despair, the Prince Ajatasattu then sent one of his ministers to talk, to ask for counsel, the Buddha. Because he thought, this is such a difficult matter, I don't know how to ask, I don't know who to ask. So I asked the Buddha, because he is very intelligent. At that time, it's the only thing that he could think of. He didn't ask for any spiritual guidance. He asked for advice on warfare. But the Buddha, of course, he didn't want to be involved in this much. But on the other hand, he did have to respond to the minister that came to see him. So the way he responded was indirect. He didn't talk with the minister directly when he responded. But he talked to the Venerable Ananda, his personal attendant. And he said, he talked about the characteristics of the Vachians. He said there are a number of characteristics that the Vachians have, which makes it very hard for them to which makes it very hard for them to have disharmony. They are very unified, they're very strong, and they're very prosperous. He said these 7 characteristics or 7 conditions, even just one of them is enough to be very strong, to be a strong community, but they have 7. And he said he was the one who taught them, the Buddha. That because they practice these things, they can be prosperous. So the first one of them is to regularly hold assemblies. Regular and frequent assemblies. In other words, to have meetings often. To come together often. That may be at the level, maybe at many levels. I'll explain more later. When you meet, you do not just meet in a haphazard way, but you meet in harmony, break up in harmony, and carry on your business in harmony. And the third characteristic, or the third condition, is not to authorize what has not been authorized already, and not to abolish what hasn't been authorized, but to proceed according to what has been authorized by ancient tradition. I will explain this a little later. The fourth one is to honor, respect, revere, and salute the elders amongst you, and consider them worth listening to. An old translation says, I don't even know how to pronounce that, to hearken to the elders' words. And then the next important characteristic says, not to forcibly abduct others' wives and daughters and compel them to live with you, which is about morality. To honor, respect, this is the sixth one, to honor, respect, revere, and salute the shrines at home and abroad, not withdrawing the proper support made and given before. And the last one, the seventh one, to make proper provision for the safety of arahants or enlightened ones, so that such enlightened ones may come in the future to live there, and those already there may dwell in comfort. In other words, to welcome the monks, the practicing monks, to your home or to the place where they can come to, like a temple or something like that. Now let's go into some more detail. So all of these characteristics is what the Buddha said. This is the reason why the Vachians are very difficult to conquer. So if you want to conquer the Vachians, think again. That was basically his message. But of course, the minister, his name was Vasakala. He was, he was given an assignment. He didn't want to change his mind. So he thought, well, in that case, we'll find another way. We'll just divide them. So after that, they still were going to continue with their warfare, but at least they didn't shed a lot of blood. So in that, at least the Buddha had managed to prevent a lot of bloodshed. At the same time, however, these 7 conditions the Buddha at that time later on set as his model. He said everyone practice these conditions, and the community, the monastic community, the spiritual community will be able to exist, to prosper for a long time and will not decline. So this is the foundation of Buddhist practice in community that the Buddha gave as a standard before he passed away. And it could very well be the conditions that are very important for any meditation center. Could very well be very important for any spiritual community. They are, of course, formulated in a way that we have to look a bit deeply at what the meaning is, so that we can decipher it. Hold regular and frequent assemblies, the first one. This refers to coming together regularly. If you talk about a family, it means to have food together now and then. These days, some people and some families, the parents hardly ever meet the children because they don't have food together, they don't have dinner together, they don't have breakfast together. Sometimes the parents come back home late because of their work. Sometimes the children, they have a lot of activities to do, so they don't meet their parents. This, however, is something that can lead to disharmony in family. Because whenever there's something you want to say, first of all, you do not say those things that are bothering you. You do not meet each other, you do not look each other in the eyes. Second thing is you do not practice to communicate. So the old Western tradition that you have dinner together and that, especially with a young child, you ask your parents for leave before you go from the table. It's actually a good tradition, but understandably in modern days, because of the irregular working hours and all that, it's maybe more difficult. But this is an important principle still that we cannot forget. At the same time, in a spiritual community, coming together, living together in harmony, it is also important in a spiritual community to have frequent assembly. When you chant together, you would chant together at the same time, come together at the same time. You meditate often together. If you are working in a meditation center, you need to, or you are a volunteer, you have to sometimes talk together in a meeting or something like that. This is important. Sometimes we think that, oh, we meet each other anyway every day, so you don't need to have any meeting. You can talk anyway. That may be the case, but do you ever meet all together? Usually you don't. Just meet with 2 or 3 people at the same time. So if you have the opportunity to have a meeting, it will be better. To have a meeting will be able to give you people the opportunity also to say something that they had not had the chance to say, to have a share in something, some decisions, which otherwise may be difficult for anyone that is in not in the most senior position or something like that, not in a supervising position. Also, it gives everyone the responsibility to work together. And this relates to the second characteristic, second condition of a community's welfare, second condition that a community doesn't decline. That is, to meet in harmony, break up in harmony, and carry on your business in harmony. The word harmony here means together. That's so that when you meet, it's not like you have one person coming to the meeting room at 9, the other person comes at 10, and by that time the other half is already gone or something like that. When you meet together, and you break up together. So this is an important aspect. There is in my country, it is quite interesting, there are hardly any strikes in my country where I come from, Holland. It's a country with very little strikes. There is quite a lot of harmony in work relationships, in work relations, if you compare it to other countries in Europe. I'm not saying that my country is perfect, but there are a number of things that are interesting here. Some person studying economy, some expert, he called it the polder model. He said that Holland doesn't have this problem with strikes, and that the relations in work, that the harmony in work is pretty good. It's because, and the economy has a certain stability, is because of the polder model. And then when you go back to the history of Holland, it was in fact one of the first places where democracy was founded, though not officially the first place. I think that was England, if I'm not mistaken. But it was a place where a lot of democratic structures already existed for a long time. Do you know why? Because of hardship. Because Holland was a place where, or it still is today, about 70 to 80% of Holland is below sea level. So you need to find a way together to solve the problem of the water coming into the land, flooding. So there were big hills built to stop the water since a long time ago, which we call dikes. And the whole system to control the water, dams, dikes, and rivers to catch the water, all of that relies on working together. And this system has been there for a long time, since a long time. And it relied in the past, it relied on the structure of organization that you would have small councils in every part of Holland that had to decide who was working on which dike or which hill, so that everyone had his share. If any one of them forgot, this is an important symbol, important statement. Anyone forgot to maintain his part, the water would come in. So there was a lot of, very important to negotiate and talk. And this led to a negotiation culture in Holland, that everyone will try to find a way to communicate. They will not have any strikes. So in any company in Holland, according to the law, it's just a law. You need to have a council for the personnel to come together in that council, that they can talk together and evaluate the decisions made by the board of directors. This council exists independently of the board of directors. They talk together. Any company that doesn't have this council, but it's a big company, is breaking the law. So any company that doesn't have such a council has to change that. And this council has certain rights. So you see there is a lot of emphasis on working together and listening to each other. So in Holland, sometimes even the Dutch, they make jokes of themselves saying that we always negotiate on every topic. We talk on every topic. But the ancient commentators on the Buddhist scriptures, they said that this is actually, when we talk about frequent assemblies, it is meeting a lot. But meeting a lot with a purpose, not just talking on and on and on. So this is important. And also coming together in harmony, breaking up in harmony. Suppose you're living in a meditation center and you do not have a fixed time for cleaning the center together. One person starts in the morning, one other person does it in the evening. You can do that, it's not wrong. But maybe the question will rise in some people's minds, but I feel I'm doing more than you. That may arise in the mind. But if you start together at the same time, you finish at the same time, this problem will not exist much. But if you start to clean and another person then start, okay, I'm finished, my job is done. Okay, so that's that. But if one person says, okay, I finished my sweeping, I'm going to help you with cleaning this and this and that, because your job is a bit bigger than mine, okay. This is working together. So you see this word, meeting in harmony, breaking up in harmony, and carrying on your business in harmony, it can be pretty deep if you really look at it deeply. And the time when our temple was founded, this principle was very much adhered to by Kunyai Ajahn. She emphasizes a lot. Once she had a meeting and she said to everyone that anyone who has any disputes or arguments and cannot forgive each other, holds it as a grudge. Holds a grudge. You have an argument and dispute and you just do not feel happy. You cannot let it go. You can sit at the back, she said. But anyone who has disputes and arguments, but you can just let that go, and we always have disputes and arguments that is hard to prevent. We sometimes don't agree on certain things, but you do not keep that with you. Do not hold any grudges. If you just can let it go and work together again in harmony, then please sit at the front. So this is how Kun Yai, how she taught everyone in the temple. And she said, I'm going to build this temple with the people sitting here at the front. But some people, they honestly admitted to themselves that they couldn't do that yet. But she emphasized, I will have to work with the people that can do that, because this is important when we work together. We have to be able to forgive each other. We have to be able to look each other in the eyes with kindly eyes. So this is an important aspect. At the same time, whenever there was a conflict in a meeting or something like that, Kun Yai sometimes would have everyone come together and talk. And instead of talking, have some refreshment. And after that, she would say to everyone, okay, let's meditate. And using meditation also had an impact. When people meditated together, they often forgot what their conflicts were about. So meditation is a good way also to have assemblies together and in harmony. Do not authorize what hasn't been authorized already, and do not abolish what hasn't been authorized. But proceed according, do not abolish what has been authorized, but proceed according to what has been authorized by ancient tradition. So this is basically not reinventing the wheel. There are many good principles in the Dhamma which we can use when we come to a meditation center. We have to decide on certain things, we have to work together. Then it's not always necessary to reinvent the wheel. But this is not saying that there is a general feeling among many Buddhists, especially Western Buddhists, that Buddhism teaches us to think for ourselves, which is of course true, but there is also this word coming together with that, which says free inquiry or something like that. That you do not have to listen to anyone, just decide for yourself. But that's actually something that the Buddha never taught. That he taught to listen to the wise and to reflect on it by yourself. So whenever there is, you see there are two items here that are related. First one is about dealing with tradition. And the second one that I will mention next, actually the fourth one, is to honor the elders. So the tradition or the good principles come first. And after that we talk about the elders and respect for the elders. This is an important priority that is made. So when we have to make decisions, we have to have certain standards, we have to have certain principles. If we have none of these, we might be easy to have no harmony in the community. It might be easy to have conflicts. So it's important that we study about how to manage meditation center, how to work together, how to live together in a community. And also it's important that we study about the Buddhist principles in the ancient text. Where some of these principles may be very old, but we can use them still in the present day. But we have to apply them in the right way. So this is something that's quite important. Some teachings in Buddhism are very deep, like, for example, teachings on the Paticca Samuppapada or something like that, very deep. We do not actually need to reinvent the wheel. We do not need to use these teachings in a sort of creative and modern way. In fact, in the Buddha's time, the Buddha did not teach these teachings much to lay people. He did not teach it much. except for to those who are already at a very high stage of development. So when we try to develop this new kind of Buddhism or something like that, whereas in fact the Buddha never taught like that, sometimes Buddhism becomes lost, becomes less strong. So this is not about always following the traditions blindly. There is what we might call blind loyalty and informed loyalty, which means that sometimes we can follow the traditions, can have loyalty to certain traditions, but it must be informed, it must have its reasons, we must reflect on these things. The Buddha never taught that what he taught had to be just done straight away without thinking. He taught that his teaching had 3 characteristics. First of all, he taught for others to see and to know also. After he had attained enlightenment, to also be able to see and to know. In other words, to understand as he had understood. At the same time, he also taught people to think and understand the reasons. Not just, whatever the Buddha said, we do like that. But he asked people to understand the reasons, to think, to be able to develop wisdom. And at the same time, the last important one is that whatever he taught can be practiced until you gain the fruits of its practice. So it's not a theory. It can be practiced and you will gain benefit from that. So these characteristics is what he taught. So whatever Buddhist teaching, there is always a reason behind it. There isn't any Buddhist teaching without reason. But there are a number of things that the Buddha said are very complex. When we think about them with the common rational mind, we might not fully understand them. But he didn't say, do not think. We should always be critical and reflect, but not critical in a way that, okay, I changed everything. This is the 21st century. We throw everything around. We change it. We have 21st century Buddhism. We have American Buddhism or European Buddhism or something like that. Actually, there doesn't need to be any American Buddhism or European Buddhism. Just as well as you do not need to have any Asian Buddhism. It's just important to reflect on what the Buddha taught and how to practice those things in the context that we live. But is it really important that we call it American Buddhism or Asian Buddhism? That kind of leads us away from what the real core is. Just like a society respects the Constitution, in the same way, this is the intention that the Buddha had, that we respect the principles and try not to change anything that we haven't really fully studied yet. At the same time, some traditions, some customs, some knowledge about the teachings of the Buddha are not preserved in text, in traditions or books, but they are preserved in terms of this knowledge is preserved. They are within the minds of the people with experience. A lot of spiritual practice we have to learn from our people that are more experienced. It's not in the books. Because of that, when it comes to Dhamma, respect is very important. Respect for the people who are more experienced than you in spiritual practice. Because we do not have this literal tradition that everything is in a book, everything we can refer to the book or something like that. But this oral tradition is very important in Buddhism, that we learn from the previous generation that was practicing themselves before us. When you are a monk, even if you are 70 years old, if another person is ordained before you for 1 year or something like that, or even for a few days, and he's only 20 years old, you still respect that person. So ancienity, or the time that you have been practicing, time that you've ordained, is more important than age in the world. But in the world, you might have to respect both. Age is also very important. Spiritual practice is also very important. There's a story about the importance of respecting each other according to age, respecting each other according to experience, and how these two are related. It's one of the Jatakas, or the birth stories of the Buddha. There used to be a time when a number of monks, which we call the notorious group of six, a group of monks that whatever problems there are in the time of the Buddha mostly came from this group. But there were quite a number of monks in that group. And this group of six, they went to a new monastery that was just opened. And they went there, and also a lot of other monks went there, including the Venerable Sariputta, who was one of the most foremost disciples of the Buddha. But they went a little faster because they were very eager to see this new monastery. So when they arrived there, they instantly took the best sleeping place. And Venerable Sariputta was a little later, who arrived a little later than them. He had to sleep in the open. There wasn't any sleeping place left. So when the Buddha, who was also resting there, was also sleeping there, when he woke up, he coughed, and he heard another person coughing as well as a response. Oh, there's someone outside. Who is that? Oh, it was the Venerable Sariputta. What are you doing here? Why are you sleeping under that tree? And he said, there isn't any place left. So the Buddha immediately had all the monks come together and asked what happened. And then he found out, and he then related this story, talking about, let me not just skip this part. First of all, he asked the monks, the group of six, how do you think we should respect each other? How do you think, what should we look at? How do you respect someone? What do you look at spiritually? Any ideas? Who do you consider more spiritually, spiritually something you should respect? He mentioned a few examples. One monk said, a person who was a nobleman before he became a monk. This is the old caste system, the old caste system in the time of the Buddha. Another person said, originally a person who was a Brahmin and then became a monk. Okay, that person should be respected more than others. And the other person said, okay, no, we should respect each other according to people's experience about the knowledge about the Dhamma. Anyone who knows a lot about the Buddhist scriptures, okay, you respect that one. But the other monk said, no. The person who is most experienced in meditation, that is the person you should respect. Just give him the best seat, give him the best drinks, but not just people who study. People who study are just, people who study. Then they didn't agree with each other. Because one of them said, no, we have to honor the person who studies the most. The other person said, the person who meditates the most, that's the one who had the best experience. Another person said, no, honor the Brahmins. So they were kind of confused now. This is the trick that the Buddha used. He just asked everyone, and then they found out by themselves that none of them were agreeing on anything. So when he talked about measuring people, the Buddha very clearly responded to this. He said, people have different you know, his thoughts on this were that people have different ideas on how to measure people. And sometimes it cannot be seen easily. How do you know someone has attained something? Sometimes you don't know for sure. Sometimes only the people who know are the people who attained as well. How do you know if someone has attained the Dhamma? Ask someone who attains the Dhamma. So it's sometimes hard to measure these things. So the Buddha said, if you want to live in harmony, honor those who are the elderly. He said, honor those who are the elderly. The people who are a little older, who are in the case of the monks, who are ordained before you. If you compare it with the world, then you look at a person's age, how old he is in the world. Any person that was born before you came before you in this world, then you respect him according to age, you respect her. This is a very important Asian tradition that I'm explaining here now, which is a rather big gap between the West and the East. But actually, respect for age used to be a Western tradition as well, but it's kind of has gotten lost. Because of television, because of internet, because of many other things, these days young people know on many topics, know almost the same or even more than the older people. So the whole feeling of having to respect the elderly sometimes is lost. But actually there is a lot to say in favor of that. And the Buddha didn't really go into the details of what you can learn from an elder in this story. But he very simply stated that it leads to harmony. Because whatever else you use for measuring people, you're not sure if it will be clear or not. Any person might have a different opinion. So he told the example of a great banyan tree where a partridge, a monkey, and an elephant lived. This is a story about animals, kind of like a Disney story. And he said, these three animals, originally they were friends, but they were fighting amongst each other. And this led to a lot of conflicts, and they were not happy. They were not living happily together. So then they decided to solve this problem, and they decided to solve this by checking who is the eldest, who lived here, who came to this place the first, who was born the first. And the elephant said, when I was a baby, this banyan tree that we are living together at, this banyan tree, was just a mere bush. And then the monkey said, but I've known this banyan tree since it was very tiny, even smaller than a bush. And finally the partridge says, you know, I came here before there wasn't even any tree yet, because I ate some seeds, and I then voided these seeds here, and that's why this tree arose. So it turned out that the animal who was actually the smallest turned out to be the eldest. So instead of just the survival of the fittest, now they started to look at something more deeper than that. Just to look at who is the person who is the most eldest. And therefore they decided to respect the bird, the partridge, as their elder. And they would ask the bird to teach them on a regular basis. So the bird had to work on himself to try to be an example, and the others would have to work on themselves to be more respectful. And also, of course, the monkey had to be also an elder for the elephant. So this is an example that the Buddha gave, and he said, even animals respect each other like that. So how about you, a group of 6? So in that case, this story was clearly made for this purpose, that the Buddha said that you sometimes, to respect each other according to age, will create harmony. Because living together, normally there are these tensions. People sometimes would like to be better than another person. People sometimes want to compare themselves with others. When you respect each other according to age, a lot of this can be solved. So therefore, the Buddha said that when we respect each other according to age, a lot of this competition, a lot of this ego is becoming less, because you have clarity in who to respect first and who is your elder. So it is actually a very objective way to measure people, rather than to have the tension of who is the best in Dhamma, who is the best meditation teacher, who is the best teacher in Dhamma, who is the best Brahmin or the best something like that. You just look at someone's age and it's all finished. So I've seen with my own eyes that a lot of problems in the West come from this lack of clarity in who's big and who's small. But of course you need to have flexibility. Sometimes in Asia, this whole seniority thing is too strict. You need to have some flexibility. So even in the Buddha's time, sometimes some monks, there were some exceptions to this rule of respecting each other according to seniority. Sometimes one monk would be very versed, very chanting, be able to chant the monastic code very well, and he would be given respect, even though he was not the most elder one. Finally, there are another 3 characteristics. Just now we talked about 2 aspects of community living, that is having discipline together, in having meetings together, and also respecting each other, respecting the elders and respecting tradition. Tradition comes before elders. Tradition is therefore the most important thing, the good traditions, and to know their reasons. Then after that, the Buddha then talks about some things that may also break up a community. One thing he talks about, do not forcibly abduct others' wives and daughters and compel them to live with you. That was one of the other characteristics. The Vachians never did that. So they didn't have any forced marriages. So this was something that led to unity in society as well. Because when you have a forced marriage, sometimes some party might not be able to will not be able to agree with that, and they might have a conflict. So at the same time, this also leads to having clear lines, clear guidelines in the community. So sometimes in a community, in a spiritual community, there is no clarity as to whether you are actually leading the celibate life or not. You need to be clear on this. Kunyai was very clear on this. In a meditation center, in the temple, in our temple at least, there wasn't anything going on between men and women. You wouldn't have any of that. So that you didn't have this problem. Okay, whatever you do at home, that's your own business. But here, we just concentrate on meditation. Then to honor, respect, and revere and salute the shrines at home and abroad, not withdrawing the proper support made and given before. So to continue the support given to shrines. Shrines here actually can very well refer to a place for meditation. Like we have in our temple, the Dhammakaya Thailand. That is a very good example. For any other place for meditation, that is a good place where people come together to chant, to meditate, to learn about the Dhamma. This is something we should honor. In such a place, we should try not to make too much noise. We should try to respect that place. Finally, proper provision is made for the safety of arahants or enlightened ones, so that such arahants may come in future to live there, to live in the place that we've provided, and those that are already there may dwell in comfort. This is about taking good care of the arahants. taking good care of the light ones, or in the present day, taking good care of those who are good meditation teachers, good Dhamma teachers, to be able to learn, continue to learn. So apart from living together in a community with respect, with discipline, and also having meditation practice going on together, respecting the meditation place by meditating together, it's also important that we sometimes invite a teacher. We have a teacher coming to the place, and we keep into contact with that teacher, inviting him. Even if he's already come, we have to make sure that that person is in the mood to teach. Not like teaching when you teach Dhamma and everyone is just meditating, closing their eyes, and as soon as the Dhamma teacher says, okay, then we meditate together, and everyone goes away. So this is something that is very important. At the same time, of course, we have to realize that this is about creating an opportunity for someone to advise us and to instruct us further on the spiritual path. Just like the Buddha's proverb says, the one who sees one's faults, who speaks reprovingly wise, whom one would see as an indicator of treasures, as the one who points to a treasure. With such a sagacious person, a wise person, one would associate. To one associating with such a person, the better it will be, not the worse. So this is about one aspect, that is having a person that can instruct you and can advise you, not only about faults, of course, but also about anything else on the spiritual path. A teacher, therefore, is very important. So these are the 7 characteristics that the Vajrayans always practiced, and why Ajasattu, Prince Ajasattu, could not conquer them. And if in any spiritual community we have these 7 practices, then can be for sure that we will not have any. It is very unlikely that this community will decline or will be in problems, but it will be a very harmonious community where everyone find it easy to meditate and that everyone will find it easy to do good. This is all I would like to teach for today. Thank you.